Hey everybody, hopefully everybody's doing well, healthy, safe, and okay. So I sent some stuff on Google Classroom. I did want to go over some stuff that way nobody is confused on a couple things. So um, March 17th is the first thing that I added. Um, One of them is a message, which you can look at that message. It's just basically explaining kind of what we're trying to do. Um, the others are March 18th. So this one on March 18th is Module 1314 Trig. That is a Symbaloo, and I've sent y'all a Symbaloo before. I actually sent it up here too. It's the same thing. So these two things are the same thing. It says assignment, but it's not something that you have to do. It's not something you have to go to. It's not something that you're going to be graded on. But if you do go to that Symbaloo page, all it is a bunch of resources. So you're going to see a bunch of stuff on there. Don't freak out like you have to do it all. You don't. There are links for notes, for videos, for stuff that will help you out. You're going to have three Khan Academy assignments. So right here, these three assignments that I did on March 18th, these are the three assignments that we need to do next week. Okay, those are the three. Now, all this other stuff is just resources to help you out. Top right here, these are YouTube videos of tutoring. I went through some, and these are the best that I found. Your CK12, we're going to need that later on, but as far as next week, it's not important for next week. This is just notes and resources for you as well. The Khan Academies, you can see some of them are labeled notes, some are labeled videos. If you need those, they're there. Now, the three assignments that are due are the trig practice, solve for a side, and you can see those are labeled practice. Those are the three that you'll do. So that's just a link to those assignments. This math is fun. These are just some good notes I thought were really good because we won't be talking about it in class, even though this video is going to show you a couple of examples. I thought these were really good notes to help you out visually. And at the bottom, it does have some questions for you to answer. And we may do some of those on another video. So what we're getting into is this kind of stuff. It's called trig, trigonometry, and it's sine, cosine, tangent. That's the main three things that we're going to talk about, otherwise known as SOHCAHTOA. All right, so we're going to do a few, but SOHCAHTOA, I'll explain to you later what that actually means. Only works for right triangles. So there's going to be a breakdown of this module. One is right triangles. There's another section that's going to be for any triangles, but SOHCAHTOA only works for right triangles. All right, so let's get into a few. There's 4 steps. Okay, and these are your 4 steps, and we're going to do 4 separate videos on these 4 steps. All right, the first step, don't worry about 2, 3, and 4. First step, we have to label the sides of the right triangle. Okay, you have heard of all 3 of these words. We just got to make sure we label them correctly. And here's a visual for you, okay, if you need to go back to it. Now, that's part of step 2. We'll get to that later. But hypotenuse, opposite, and adjacent. So here's a couple of examples. Let's say we have these triangles. I have to label each side, whether it is the opposite side, the adjacent side, or the hypotenuse side. The best way that I know is the very first thing, you should label the hypotenuse first. Now, what is hypotenuse? It's always opposite the 90 degrees. Now, this is 90 degrees, but you're going to have a box mostly on all of yours. And that box means 90 degrees. So with that box, whatever side is opposite that box, that 90 degrees, is going to be labeled the hypotenuse. I would do that first. Okay, then we're kind of done with the 90 degrees after that. Then after that, after I've labeled hypotenuse, find the angle that it's talking about. This symbol is called the theta symbol, Theta, theta. That is telling you what angle we're talking about. So you see we have angle F, angle G, which is the 90 degrees, and angle H. Sometimes they'll ask for angle F. Sometimes they'll ask for angle H. In this example, it's F. So that determines which one is adjacent and which one is opposite. The other two things I have to label. So I have these two sides that have not been labeled yet. Based on that angle that either I'm trying to find or I'm using, I have to label one of them adjacent, one of them opposite. Well, go back to when we talked about adjacent. Adjacent means next to. Okay, opposite is opposite, but adjacent means next to. So if I'm talking about this angle, this is the side next to, this FG. So that would be labeled adjacent, which would make the other one opposite. Okay, now if they switch this, instead of angle F, they put angle H. Well, hypotenuse is never going to change. It's always opposite 90. But now this side is the adjacent side, which would make the other one the opposite side. So these two things are all based on what angle are we talking about. Okay, but hypotenuse would never change. All right, so let's do this one, XYZ. XYZ, 90 degrees, that's opposite, so that would be hypotenuse. Very first thing. So if this is my theta, okay, that means this would be these are the two that are next to. And here's where some people have got confused in the past. They said, well, that side is next to that angle and that side is next to that angle. That's true, but we've already labeled that hypotenuse. So that one's already labeled hypotenuse. This one has to be labeled adjacent. And then that would make that one the opposite. Now, what some people have liked to do, and this is totally up to you, that's the 90 degrees, so that's going to be the hypotenuse. I would do that every time, no matter what. Some people want to label the opposite first. That's fine. All right, this is theta. Opposite side would be here. So they would rather label the opposite, the one furthest away first, and then say, okay, the one left over would be adjacent. That's totally up to you, however you want to do it. Okay? All right, let's look at a few more. All right, so this one, right angle here, hypotenuse will be there. Okay, so then angle is here. So I have these two that are not labeled. This would be the one next to that angle, which makes that one the opposite. Again, just figure out which one you want to do first. If you want, hypotenuse should always go first, but do you want to do the opposite next and then adjacent, or adjacent, then whatever you want to do, just be consistent with what you do. Now, this is a question right here. This next one is MMP, that people commonly make a mistake on because they think of hypotenuse as always the diagonal. Well, in these cases, it's pretty obvious. Now here, when they reflect and turn and flip and rotate these things, sometimes it gets confusing. But always go to the 90 degrees. So the opposite 90 degrees is this one. That would be hypotenuse. Again, you're going to have a box. Okay, this one right here. Hypotenuse, and then our angle is angle P. So these are the two sides that are not labeled yet. So based on that angle, all right, if you want to label opposite first, right, MN is the furthest away from that angle. And MP is the one closest to that angle. And there's those three sides labeled. So that is step number one, is the label part of the trig. Label the right side, label the sides of the right triangle, one of these three. Okay, so that is step one. We're going to do 4 videos on this, one for each step. That is step one.